Mr. Hinchliffe, sir, one of the reasons I love to have you on the show is that you're an amazingly productive journalist. You're always producing a high level of quality work. So before I ask you questions about what you've been working on recently, I want to say firstly, thank you for the amazing work you do, and I really mean that. And secondly, how do you maintain such a constant stream of high quality work?
Well, thank you. I actually think I could my output could be a little better, but no, there's days where I just can't do anything. I'm just sitting there researching, and nothing's coming. But then once it does, there's just a flow. The typing goes, and it's just the things almost write themselves. So I don't know. I've got a huge list of areas of where I look at every single day, sources, and I try to go from there. Sometimes, if I don't do a deep dive into something, then I'll put out a couple news pieces, kind of like that's how I get to learn about the subject. I don't put really any perspective or opinion on it. Just learn about it, put a few of those out. Then once I get enough information, then I can do a longer deep dive into it. But no, it's just mostly about just checking the same sources and not really having a whole lot else to do. Just have internet and taking frequent breaks and things and just being relaxed in it, I guess. Loving what I'm doing. This is my passion.
Yeah, that is one massively important thing. Now, I know you heard the monologue that I was talking about earlier with the fact that we are putting our we are losing knowledge. We are losing knowledge, and then we're handing it over to technology. Really, that we are trying to we don't know the things. We use a tool to know, and that tool could one day be taken away from us very quickly. Do you think there's an element of that 1984 Winston Smith putting the burning, each individual piece of information? Is this actually potentially, could this happen at a massive scale in a way that we've never understood? And could we just lose masses of knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, because the information is being so siloed into technology, into screens, into clouds, into databases that, I mean, if once that's taken away, then what have we got left? I mean, the we don't have, we're not Sumerians. We don't have cuneiform clay tablets we're putting this information into. We're not Egyptians writing the hieroglyphics on the walls of temples and things. So, and our architecture now, because you can also encode a lot of ideas and mathematics and things and formulas in architecture, like the pyramids or something. But we're not really doing that anymore. So it's, yeah, once you start being so reliant on the technology and all the digital stuff, just, I mean, whether it's intentional, just saying, no, you can no longer have access, or there's an EMP, there's a disaster, there's something, then you've got like, well, how do I know things? Like nowadays we just go, if you have a conversation with someone, oh, remember what happened back then? What did that news thing say? Didn't they say something like Google it? What happens when you can't Google it? It's then it's lost to you, and then you get idiocracy. You get 1984, and you're just reduced to kind of this stupid dumbing down of all intelligence that we just don't know how to do anything anymore. No farm, we don't know how to farm, don't know how to sustain, take care of ourselves. It's all dependent on these things, and all the information is being siloed off.
Yep, I have to correct you on one thing. I have a cuneiform tablet library in my bathroom for people when they're taking a poop, that they can just
Oh,
pick up a
nice.
tablet and study a bit of cuneiform. I'm lying. Anyway, one of your recent articles on sociable.co is entitled DHS TSA testing digital identity systems, assessing liveliness of selfies. Wow. Tell us a little bit about what you've discovered.
Oh yeah, so this one, because I was looking through what different kind of programs, like is the United States actually working on like a government kind of digital identity thing? But no, this is more about the DHS and TSA that are testing all these things, technologies to see if they actually work and do what they're supposed to do. So there was something called what is it? The Remote Identity Validation Technology Demonstration Program, RIVD. It was launched late in 2022. They started it in 2023, and it was just looking at ways to. There's three tracks to it. So they would look to assess the validity of an identity document, such as driver's license or ID card, and then the next one is matching a selfie. You take a selfie and the photo of that card. Then the next one which is already underway, and it should be wrapping up pretty soon here, is assessing the liveness of the selfie. So they want to know, like, you can't just, if you're going to take a selfie to identify yourself, you can't just put a photograph up or put a tablet up, take a picture of that, and have that pass as like they need to like what you're alive. This is in the moment kind of real time stuff. So that's what they were looking at, and yeah, they're partnered with all these different. Two different airlines, at least Delta and United Airlines, are doing it. They got test beds in different airports, and so this is one step towards that digital ID. They're integrating the stuff into, well, next year in the United States, everyone has to have a real ID. That's what it's called to travel. So it can be a driver's license, which has to be an updated version of driver's license, or your passport still works. But they're digitizing that as well. There was a law that went into effect a few years back to update all of this. So it's yeah, no matter what, it keeps going forward with the digital ID stuff, not being mandated, not being forced, but I don't know how long that's going to last.
What is the real ID? And that's REAL in big letters, so it probably stands for some. It's an acronym for something. What is a real ID? We don't have that yet in the UK, but is it already there in America? And what is it?
Yeah, it's already there. I mean, it's and anytime I think now you go out and get the new ones. I mean, at least I know of at least 7 states that already had it for quite a while. And what it is just a normal driver's license or an ID card, but it has like a little star in the right corner or some other little symbol. And that just proves that it's a real one. I didn't even look at for it as an acronym. It just says real, which that was good enough for me on that because I was looking more on like, oh, what do you do with it? So yeah, it's just one of those things that they just have to update it. And like if you have an older driver's license or ID card, you can't go with it. So I'm imagining that there's certain more information kind of coded into this ID anyway. It's a physical card, but they're making it digital as well. So yeah, I think that's the trajectory they're going on.
If we had another organized lockdown, will everybody, do you think, have to show? Because when I was in Chile, I mean, my experience in Chile, for instance, they started before they locked down in America and Britain. They were already locking down in Chile, and they were test bed in a load of the different ways to go around. So we had to apply to an authority to get permission slip. So then we show that permission slip on a digital phone app to people at a shop to prove that we coming out for this 2 hours. You're only allowed out 2 hours a week, and you have to show it at every ID. Of course, everybody lives like 45 minutes away from the shop, so it's a bit of a pain. Will it be a case that in the future, unless you have a real ID and there's a lockdown, you won't be able to use certain services?
Well, it depends on where you are. I mean, I guess in the United States, legally, I don't know how they can actually do that. I mean, they can just say this is obligatory, this is mandatory, like you have to do this, but like legal, is this the law? I'm not sure, but it doesn't have to be the government. It just can be at whatever store that says it, just taking recommendations from the WHO or the CDC. That's what happened before. I know in Colombia, I mean, I was out in the middle of nowhere in the in the mountains, so I wasn't in the city, but I did hear that they were asking for that on certain days with your ID card. Like if your number ends in an odd or even, then that's when you can go out and do things. I didn't pay attention to that at all because I just had one little tiny tienda, a little shop bodega down there on the road, and they didn't care about that. So I didn't experience it personally, but it's all set up so you can do it. And like I said, it doesn't have to be the government. It can just be whatever restaurant or shopping chain or whatever that decides to do it.
Yeah, of course, because in reality, what happens then, you give power to people who don't necessarily exact power as the law describes or says or prescribes. So you get people like a guy I saw outside one of the supermarkets. Now, one of the supermarkets in Chile, the chains is called El Tit, which makes anybody from the West laugh a little bit. But denying people access to the store because he was out by a couple of minutes. And I found that sort of thing. Oh, well, it's now no longer the police who are in charge of policing this. It will be the people in the shops and etc. And then you get then again, it comes down to knowledge. One question before we go to a quick news headline break, and this is from Dark Commission in the chat. He says, shall we take up Mr. Putin's offer and move to Russia?
It seems kind of it's a shiny, a little tempting there, but I don't know. I don't know too much about the food. in Russia. I haven't really had Russian food. Well, I had Russian dumplings a lot when I was younger in college. Where there's an excellent Russian dumpling place that was delicious. But I'm kind of more of a southern person, not too much of the cold. So you do you, boo.
Borscht dumplings, that's what you get, and you'll have to like it. And to be perfectly honest, it's pretty tasty, spicy, lots of vodka. Right, we'll go to a quick break. You're listening to today's News Talk TNT.
Free speech is alive and well on today's News Talk TNT.
Welcome back to the Johnny Bedmore Show on today's News Talk TNT. I'm here with Tim Hinchliffe. Now, we were just having a little chat behind the scenes, behind the curtain, and you were saying that you did have a little bit of an issue with vaccine passports and I've had a similar issue when you were in Colombia. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, well, apart from like entry and exit requirements in airports, so that was a thing that couldn't travel. So it was at Christmas time. I think it was in 2021 or 2022. I can't remember now, but I think it was 2022, and it was Christmas Eve. So I was like, okay, I had to cancel my flight. Couldn't go to the United States for Christmas, so I decided I'm going to go into the jungle, into the park, in the jungle, in the woods, and walk around and hike. But as soon as, and there was nobody there. It was just one person working there. I was denied entry because I could not show proof of vaccination to even just walk in the jungle. That to me was insane.
Yeah, I had the same experience in Chile. Me and the ex decided we were going to go up to the volcanoes, to a national park where there's a twin volcano that's really beautiful. We got there and there was a guard on the gate. And apparently we're not allowed to walk around a public park if we're not vaccinated, and we don't have the right little piece of paper that they wanted for it, or the app that they wanted for it. And I found that just bizarre, but that is how power works, isn't it? And that is another example of how it doesn't matter where you what the police say, etc. Is when it gets down to the people who rule their little roost, whether they'll let you come into their roost. And yeah, I thought that was a really interesting one for you to explain as well, because I mean, that's something. Nature should not be banned during times of pandemics, that's for sure. Going on, are we in the era of extreme data collection, and will this era ever end?
We've been in it for quite a while, and yeah, and there's no stopping it. It's coming from all angles. It's the public and private sectors, and it's them working together, and they just share with each other, and they buy it, they sell it, they share it, they acquire it, they organize it, they structure it, they just make anonymize it and de-anonymize it. Everything. Data is everything, like you were talking about in the opening monologue.
Mm-hmm. Amazing situation, amazing times we're living in, and it doesn't. I don't think there's ever a point where they're going to have enough data. They're always going to have to continue to take in data, and then what they do with it, and how they end up looking at the metadata, even, I reckon, is going to be something that's around in the future. Today you released an article. I think it was today you released it, entitled "U.S. Spy Community is Looking for Cheaper and Quicker Ways to Access and buy your data." Tell us more about that then.
Well, for a little background, just last year, it was in June of last year, is when the Office of the Director of National Intelligence in the United States had its report on commercially available information. I saw it before people were writing about it, but I was like, yeah, they buy it, they take people's information. They've been doing this for years. I did Snowden for 2014. Like the government's collecting data on citizens. I know that, but I didn't realize. I didn't see how the newsworthy. I was like, well, I guess this is a new thing. But then Glenn Greenwald came out with a huge thing on it, and then everyone else started reporting on it. I'm like, oh, I could have done something. Anyway, fast forward to today. This is a continuation of that. So there was a lot of backlash after last year, and they're saying, like, with the congressman saying to the defense or the intelligence agencies, you need to clean up your act a little bit. You need to delete any erroneous data. You need to better look at how you do acquire and purchase and all this stuff. But just yesterday, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence put out a request for information for something called the Intelligence Community Data Co-op, the ICDC, has a rock and roll ring to it, ACDC kind of stuff. So what they're looking to do now is to just streamline and make everything quicker, faster, and easier to purchase and acquire all of our data. So what they said is what the intelligence community seeks is to leverage a data co-op model to reduce the aggregate cost of commercially available information and publicly available information, and accelerate and improve the intelligence community's acquisition and access to these informations. So they're just streamlining the entire process. And they're saying that they're looking into integrating commercial data sets, publicly information data sets, establishing a government-funded co-op. It'll be a single focal point for negotiations with the vendors, compliance vehicle to ensure that they're using the data and it complies with their owners' terms and conditions, and a mechanism to pool agency funds to gain access to targeted commercial data sets. So, I mean, this is a one-stop shop. It's everything that they just want to make. They don't want to go all these different vendors, or they want to get the best prices from these vendors, and they want to vet the vendors. Like, oh, you have the best information. Okay, we're going to buy from you. And then we're going to need someone to bring this all stuff together in one kind of co-op platform area. I don't know about platform, but a co-op, and just streamline the entire spying process of you and or I, or at least Americans. And well, you know, we're part of the Five Eyes. We share information. Sharing is caring.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with that. I don't think people have the belief that intelligence works by country to country, where nowadays it's a big grey blob and they're collecting all of our data together, because, of course, we have so many crossovers as well. And that data then will get shared. I'm sure they'll write into law as they create these multipolar globalized areas that they'll be like, oh, all of us must share data together, all the British, European, Americans, and that's a way to combine us. Now, that office of the director of national intelligence, that sounds like such an Orwellian office. Is it just is that where they centralize the collection of all data from everywhere?
Yeah, that's the office above that. Well, national intelligence. There's like what 17, or is there now 18 with Space Force? I can't remember now. Intelligence agencies within the United States. So I mean, you got Office of Naval Intelligence. You got the CIA, of course. You got the Defense Intelligence Agency as well. You got all of them, NSA, like all of them. So that's where that goes. And so you know, the going on this public data stuff, like what the report that was declassified last year was actually originally published in January 2022, so the research was going on in 2021. They were talking about that the volume and sensitivity of this data that they're gathering, that they're buying, has expanded in recent years, and that it includes, you know, location tracking and other features of smartphones, electronic devices, and then there's the advertising-based monetization models that underlie many of the commercial offerings available on the internet. They're taking all of that, and now that they're just expanding upon it, because what they also said is that this commercially available information clearly provides intelligence value, whether considered in isolation or in combination with other information. So it says that this information can be anonymized, but then using other commercially acquired information, it can be de-anonymized and to identify people and whoever. So yeah, if you just get data from this one thing, like, oh, this is really rich. You just have this little other data over here, combine that. Oh, we know where you are, what you're doing, what you're eating, what time you take a dump, you know, all that.
Yeah, that's if they knew what time I took a dump, it would be over though. No, but there's a double question I got for you here from the chat. It's a double question from two different chatters asking a question combined. Joel Allen and Dark Commission, my chat wingmen, have asked, who is doing the hacking of our data and putting it on the web for free? And Dark Commission asked, and why aren't they working for us?
Who's doing the hacking? I mean, just take your pick. You got your own government. You got the companies that your internet service provider. You got your phone companies. You got everybody. And then what was the second part to it? Why aren't they doing that?
Why aren't they working for us? Yeah,
exactly. We need someone going there. I mean, there are some. You get some of those government, the leaks from the government. WikiLeaks did something. They did something a while back. They shared some stuff, and look what happened to Assange.
Yeah, yeah. I know Dark Commission also asked what could they do if we took our torches and pitchforks to the data stores, but I think that's too spicy a question to ask, because I think we all know what the answer is. One more question for you then. Again from the chat, Joel Allen has asked, who is winning the data war, the West or China?
Oh, well, the thing is, the West can get we get a lot of data and things. Then China can just steal it. So I don't know. And then they're doing their own thing as well. So I mean, they've already almost perfected their whole Orwellian totalitarian thing within their own country. And then stealing all the data from the United States. I mean, they have all the biometric data of like every single American. I know that. They've got all the military data from their F-15 jets and stuff. They've just duplicated that. So it's a toss-up. But I mean, as far as politically, like there's no kind of like public restraints on China and within its own country. They're just going to keep going and going and doing their own thing. And then so the West says, well, if we need to do the same thing, because if we don't, they'll do it first. So we need to do it first and be better at it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that seems to be the way it's happening. And eventually, when those multipolar poles of globalism merge into one big globalist entity, then, well, they'll all be on the same side anyway. So it'll all work out.